council meeting. The first item on the agenda will be our finance department and adopting our millage rate. I'm sorry, we're having a little feedback here in the room, so if you can hear that, I apologize. Our IT department is working on it diligently. So I would like to ask Gary Palmer to lead us in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. As I said, the first item on the special called meeting is it's the only item, the administration of finance department, and that would be Councilmember Tizer. Will you take this away?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This item is the second reading of the millage rate, and I believe, Mayor, before it goes to Director Luckett, does Bob need to read it?
Yes, he does. Mr. Halsey.
Ordinance to adopt millage rate, whereas the mayor and council of the city of Roswell are the governing authority of the city of Roswell, whereas the governing authority of the city of Roswell is authorized by state law and OCGA section 48-5-32 to set the millage rate for the collection of ad valorem taxes. Now, therefore, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell wish to establish a millage rate of 4.955. Millage rate has a component of 4.705 mils for the general fund, operating and capital improvements budget, and a component of 0.250 mils for servicing bonded indebtedness.
Thank you, Mr. Halsey. Mr. Luckett.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I have just a brief recap of the information that we talked about in our last two meetings, and I'll go ahead and share my screen. Can everyone see that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. As we mentioned, this is the second reading of our ordinance to adopt our millage rate for FY 2021. Just to give you some background, so our FY 2021 budget was adopted by the Mayor and Council back on June 8th. That budget was based on an estimated digest and a millage rate staying at 4.955 mils. We did receive a preliminary digest from Fulton County back on July 7th. And we have placed all the relevant advertisements related to the millage rate in our local newspapers, as well as the city's website and social media outlets. Just to give you some brief information on the overall digest, just as a reminder, our digest grew by about 1.3% overall. We anticipated our residential digest to grow by about 3%, and that's pretty much what happened. However, we did plan and anticipate our commercial millage rate, our commercial digest to grow by about 7%, but the commercial digest actually decreased by about 3.5%. So overall, our digest increased by 1.3%. This table gives you an idea of the breakdown of the various components of our digest. You can see the year-over-year change. So for tax year 2020, residential property made up about 72% of our total digest, and commercial was about 25%. As far as homestead exemptions, the city offers several. We have 2 homestead exemptions that we offer for our seniors age 65 and over, as well as another one for ages 65 and over with a adjusted gross income of less than $40,000 a year. We also offer homestead exemptions for disabled veterans, and then the floating homestead exemption, which began last year and reduces a total of about $616 million in assessed value. So all those combined results in savings to our residents of about $3.3 million, and that averages out to about $114 per household. The fact that our commercial property digest did decrease and didn't meet our expectations, that did have an impact on our estimated revenues. And this table shows you, so our FY 2021 budget, we are anticipating total general fund revenue of about $25.8 million. With these updated digest numbers, we're estimating that we would receive about 25.3 million. And that is about a 2% drop below what we expected, or about $500,000. This chart gives you just a history of our millage rate for the city of Roswell. So you can see for quite a while there, our millage rate was at 5.455 mils. In FY 2019, when the digest grew by quite a large amount, the council did decide to reduce the millage rate by half a mil, and we've maintained that the last 2 years. This next chart gives you a comparison of how Roswell compares to our North Fulton neighbors. So you can see on an M&O rate only, the city of Roswell has the next to the lowest rate. And then when you combine both the M&O and our bond, we're right in the middle of all of our North Fulton neighbors. So the Roswell millage rate for FY 2021, we're proposing to remain the same at 4.955. That includes our maintenance and operations component that goes to support all of our general fund services and programs like public safety, fire, transportation, recreation, and parks. And then we have our debt service portion, which is 0.25, and that goes to support the bonded indebtedness that has been approved by the voters through previous referendums. As we've talked about before, we are required to calculate a rollback millage rate. And basically this rollback millage rate is intended to turn the net value of all of our reassessments that took place into a millage equivalent, and then it reduces the millage rate by that millage equivalent. So our rollback millage rate would be 4.685. However, we are proposing to keep the millage rate at 4.955. And that is the equivalent of about less than 0.5% increase over the rollback rate. And I did just want to point out real quick, you can see the rollback millage rate is solely based upon the M&O rate, and that's why you can see 4.685 compared to the 4.705. This chart just gives you a quick picture of a Roswell resident's total tax bill, and you can see that out of the total property taxes that residents pay, the city of Roswell makes up about 15% of that total tax bill, with the bulk of that coming from Fulton County Schools and Fulton County itself. Also on our 2019 appeals, these are the appeals from the prior tax year. So there were a total of 1,425 appeals. Of those, about half of the appeals that have been resolved to date resulted in a decrease in value. That total value decrease is the equivalent of about $600,000 in revenue to the city, or about $123 million in assessed value. To date, as it shows, only about 80% of our appeals have been resolved. And when it comes to 2020 appeals, that deadline just passed this past week on the 27th of August. We haven't received any information yet about what those appeals look like for Roswell. So in summary, our tax digest has increased by 1.3%, but our new and existing homestead exemptions have reduced that value by $661 million. Our property tax revenues are anticipated to come in about $500,000 less than what we budgeted for FY 2021. And as we talked about, we will continue to monitor that, and especially once we get the final digest and we send out bills for property taxes, we'll be back to you on our first quarter budget review in terms of how we address this less revenue than we anticipated. Our 2020 appeals, as I mentioned, are unknown at this point. And then finally, we're just recommending that our millage rate remain at 4.955 mils, which is the same amount as the prior year. So thank you all very much, and I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Does council have any comments or questions? Councilmember Palermo.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So again, just given this is obviously the third time we've discussed this, but it is important. I want to make sure to state my position. I'm opposed to this tax increase on our homeowners. There are many cuts that should have been made to this budget. This was especially not the year to be spending so much taxpayer money on things that don't benefit taxpayers. As discussed during the budget, there was a lot of administration spending that could have been cut and a lot more worthwhile opportunities like correcting pay issues with our first responders, along with more road paving and a number of other things that really residents are wanting and needing. As I brought up before, I really hope council will support my request for more of a zero-based budget process in the next year. We have many essential services, and at the same time, our operational budget has grown over the years and really deserves some public analysis to make sure we're better prioritizing our city spending and really spending tax dollars. So I really hope this council will support that within this next year.
Thank you. Additional comments from council? Yes, Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to take just a moment and clear up a misunderstanding by explaining a little bit of the process. We went through this last year when the preliminary digest said that we would potentially collect $700,000 more than that with the same rate as prior year. At that time, Director Luckett warned us that appeals would potentially eat up most of that, what appeared to be an increase. So far, as he said just a moment ago, 80% of those appeals were heard from last year and resulted in a $600,000 reduction. 20% of those appeals still need to be heard. And if you do the math on that, it's another $150,000 to $200,000. By using the 4.992 again this year, the preliminary, let me just repeat, preliminary digest says that we would collect $100,000 more. But remember, that's before appeals. And so I take Director Luckett's warning from last year very seriously because it's quite possible that before this year's appeals are completed, last year's appeals are completed, that $100,000 that appears to be an increase in what the the preliminary digest tells us will happen, will be gone. And there also are there's many appeals coming from this year that will reduce the amount of the digest. And I think the thing that everyone should remember is that this digest is preliminary before appeals, and each year appeals make that number go down. So just wanted to clear that up, that this is preliminary and before appeals, and likely we will collect less this year than we did last year. Thank you.
Additional comments, questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Judy.
I'd just like to say we are keeping the millage rate the same, period. Playing politics with this semantics is dangerous. Based upon the information given and the outstanding appeals, this is the only choice to keep our citizens safe, our employees employed, and the city running optimally. So I support the millage rate staying at what we had it last year. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional comments and questions from council? Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I just want to say, I think talking about a tax decrease is always a good thing, but I just want to remind everyone how much careful work has been done on putting together a priority-based budget. We've cut about $11 million out of the budget for, things like employee raises and public safety investments and transportation, sidewalks and road repaving work that needs to be done, as well as about $21 million of capital projects that are on hold. So I think staff has done a really strong job of putting together a priority-based budget. Unlike the federal government, we can't print money. We have to balance our budget. So I also support the millage rate that's been recommended by staff.
Thank you. Additional comments and questions by council? Seeing no hands up, I would like to make a few comments as I presented this budget. We haven't had our first quarter review on this budget, which I think is very important. This budget does not include an annual raise for our employees or new positions. This budget defers facility maintenance. It reduces funding for road resurfacing and sidewalk construction. It delays Fire Station 2 land acquisition. It delays the opening of Mimosa Hall. It reduces funding for all partner organizations from last year's levels. In addition to that, we are hoping that revenues will increase enough that the city will be able to fund some of the capital projects to later cut back under the proposed budget. We are also using, and this is very important, we are also using $500,000 in unassigned fund balance from our current year's budget through operating expenses in the 2021 budget. That is normally not our practice. I would also like to say, because someone had questioned that when Councilmember Palermo introduced reducing our budget by $1 million, someone had made a comment apparently that that's easy to do on a budget our size. And I would like to reiterate this information. Our unfunded operating requests of $4.1 million. That's 4.1. It includes employee compensation, full-time fire captain positions, etc. Also, we have unfunded maintenance capital requests to the tune of $7.1 million. And that's for facility maintenance, park maintenance, road resurfacing, sidewalks, etc. And then also we've got the unfunded one-time capital requests, which is to the tune of $21.1 million. So when someone says to me, you can cut $1 million out of this budget today, what I'm saying to you is, look at what we have cut out. 4.1 million, 7.1 million, $21.1 million. And that was a budget that was being prepared by our finance staff pre-COVID. They were 95% finished with this budget that we were going to present to council when COVID hit. So please don't tell me that we have room to move. The only movement that we can make is whichever council member has certain priorities or other council members don't have those same priorities. What I'm presenting to you is a budget that will get us through COVID-19, God willing, and that we will reassess on a quarterly basis. And we haven't even had our first quarterly review of that budget. So the good news is sales tax revenues are coming in higher. We don't know what property tax revenues are going to come in at, but I am telling you, and I will stand by my word, that this is a good, solid, sound budget. And I certainly would hope that you all would agree to pass it. Additional comments, questions from council? I know that we have one person in the public that would like to speak. Mr. Del Cerro, are you in the queue with us?
You can hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. I appreciate your time this evening. I'm also in support of the proposed millage rate. And thank you all for your extensive work that you put behind this. I have personally attended multiple sessions presented online on Zoom. And I also appreciate all the hard work by Mr. Luckett and his team. I did want to go ahead and inquire on a couple of questions. My first question is this. I saw in our presentation tonight that the distribution of our tax digest is a 72-25 split between residential and commercial accordingly. I would like to find out from a benchmarking perspective how that relates to Milton and to Alpharetta. And my second question is, has any model been conducted of what the future holds for Roswell for the next 5 years ahead? Is the millage rate expected to go up, even down in the future? I know it might be difficult, but just thought I would try to get some sort of educated perspective of what's ahead for our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Luckett, can you respond to those questions?
Yes, Mayor. Unfortunately, I don't have both of those cities. I do know that the city of Alpharetta, their commercial tax base is about 50% of the total digest. I can find out Milton's breakdown. I can get that to you. And the second question, we do put together a 5-year forecast each year as part of beginning our annual budget process. Keep in mind this year's budget 5-year forecast happened pre-COVID, so it's probably not it's probably a little out of date, and we haven't had a chance to update that yet. But I will tell you that our forecast pre-COVID did anticipate a flat millage rate going forward. And at this point, it's kind of hard to say what we could do, but I would say that, I would say that our forecast pretty much remains the same in terms of our millage rate. I could see that millage rate staying the same, but it is kind of early to tell as we go through this pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Luckett. Are there, and Mr. Del Cerro, we will, anything that hasn't been answered, we will make sure that we get an email to you and answer that as well. So thank you for attending tonight, and thank you for your questions and concerns. Are there, that was the only public comment we had on the budget. Is there anyone on council that would like to speak or raise additional questions? Yes, Councilmember Zapata.
Thank you, Mayor Henry. So like I said last Monday, I invite people to go back and look the video and eventually read the transcript of last Monday meeting. I didn't support the budget. There was room for improvement. Actually, Councilmember Hall, Palermo, and myself make a 13 resident-oriented recommendations to improve the budget. Not even one was taken into consideration, and actually not even one was properly discussed for all 7 elected officials. So there was room for improvement on the budget, but was not even taken into consideration any of the 13 recommendations. So first of all, then I didn't approve the budget. I didn't support the budget. And then talking, not politics, but talking mathematically, this is a raise taxes. We're raising taxes. Keeping the same millage rate mathematically, I don't know how a lawyer will see that, but mathematically, from a business point of view, maintaining the same rate and increasing the assessed property value, this means the equation is increasing the taxes. I don't know how anybody can see other than mathematically the numbers. So, so it is increasing taxes, which I also don't agree. So for those 2 reasons, I won't be able to support maintaining and increasing the homeowner taxes.
And let me just interject here. We did discuss the proposed changes. We discussed them at length in the beginning of that meeting when we were discussing the budget. The remainder were the motions that you asked to put in place separately from the budget, which we had already discussed, all of those items that you wanted a vote on in the beginning of the meeting. So please don't tell me that we did not discuss anything. The other thing is I go back to, it is your opinion that improvements could be made to the budget. It is my opinion that this was a good, solid, sound budget to take forward. And that's the budget that I support and that I'm willing to vote on. Additional comments from council? Yes, Councilmember Wilsey.
Thank you, Mayor. I just had a question or clarification for Mr. Luckett. And I just wanted, first of all, just to say thank you to you and your staff for the work that you've done over the last 3 or 4 months in first putting together the budget and then bringing the millage rate to this point. As cities are classifying residential versus commercial, can you explain a little bit like what's included in residential and what's included in commercial? I mean, for instance, mixed use, I assume falls under commercial, whether it's for rent or apartments or how are those 2 categories broken down?
I guess the best way to explain it, residential is really purely, single family homes, the owner occupied. Whereas with commercial, you would see a lot of, or that's where all multifamily type developments would be classified as commercial. And any kind of other businesses would fall, any kind of other property that isn't really residential would fall within that category as well.
Like corporate campuses or retail or industrial. So, okay, all right.
Yes.
Thank you.
Additional comments, questions from council? I will entertain a motion. Councilmember Tizer.
Thank you, Mayor. Based on the preliminary digest and my expectation that that preliminary digest will be affected by appeals, I move to maintain the millage rate the same as last year and accept staff's recommendation.
We've got a motion by Councilmember Tizer. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Judy. All those in favor, please raise your hands. And it's Judy, Tizer, and Wilsey. And I will, all those opposed? Hall, Palermo, and Zapata. I will break the tie in favor of the budget. The budget passes. Thank you very much. Now, those of you that are in the queue to speak with open mic night issues, please stay tuned. Don't hang up. We're going to take a minute break so IT and our city clerk can document the changeover to the open mic night. So just bear with us for 1 minute and we will be back with open mic.
And we are live.
Thank you all and welcome back to the open forum segment of our meeting this evening. And the first person that I've got in the public that would like to speak is Cindy. I'm sorry, Cindy, I'm going to slaughter your last name. I apologize. So Cindy, if you're available,
yes,
we're here
can you hear me?
to listen.
Can
Yes.
you hear me? Yes?
Yes.
Okay. It's Sapoznik.
Okay, thank you. I knew no matter what I said, it was not going to be.
It's okay, but now that you see it, you probably could pronounce it easier.
Yes, thank you.
Sure, no problem. Thank you for taking my call and letting me step in here for a second. I am very happy to see for all of you that the government buildings are having mask mandates and social distancing. Not so much the city of Roswell. And it's very concerning. As we know, Georgia is number 7 as one of the hot spots throughout the country. And suggesting and hoping that people wear masks and are mature enough or caring enough, whatever those words were, to social distance, it's not working. I have been verbally attacked in Publix, as a matter of fact, after they have had their mask mandate. That so much so that the manager had to walk me to my car, not knowing if this person who verbally attacked me, cursing at me, was going to have a shotgun out in the parking lot. It was a very strange situation. I've never been threatened with my life verbally, especially in Roswell. We keep talking about, I'm hearing everyone talking about on the council, public safety and keeping citizens safe. I don't see that. I don't see what's going on Canton Street, keeping people safe. I walked into Dollar Tree today. It says masks required. Everyone has masks, but 3 or 4 people. You can't go and say anything to them because you don't know who has a gun or is going to, whatever they're going to do to you. It's caused craziness throughout Roswell. And Canton Street is an absolute joke. They had the music festival several weeks ago. That did great. That worked out well. I have friends that have restaurants near there, and they are following their own guidelines. But to drive down Canton Street and see absolutely no masks, no social distancing, and what's happening with the numbers of this disease, to me is reprehensible. I don't really know, even if that's the right word, irreprehensible, whatever it is. It doesn't make any sense to me. If the government buildings have it and are mandated, well, then why aren't we? Why aren't we able to be safe where we live and not be verbally attacked that I'm an effing Democrat and that's why I won't have to wear a mask? This is what's happening out there. And so I can't do anything about that other than steer clear of people who are not wearing masks. But anyone who drives down Canton Street, anytime, any day, there is nothing happening there that, as far as I'm concerned, and a lot of people who I know concerned in Roswell, to be happening. And I was just wondering when we are going to have mandated masks and social distancing.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments, and I will lead off my response to you, and then I may ask our legal department to weigh in on this, Mr. Halsey. But let me be very clear that in the governor's executive order, which we're waiting for him to release a new one because this one expires today at midnight, he specifically states that the municipalities can only mandate masks on property that the city owns. So facilities that the city owns. So we have done that. And we are requiring anyone that comes into our facilities, whether it's in the parks or City Hall, that they wear a mask. And also all staff members are required to wear masks. The governor also expressly stated that we as a city could not mandate masks on private property. So restaurants, bars, businesses, etc., we cannot require that they mandate masks. The other thing that the governor says is that outdoor activities are exempt from mask wearing. So if you are walking down the street, that can be construed as exercise. He also states that you don't need to wear a mask for obvious reasons if you're eating or drinking. So I think that's a lot of what we're seeing on Canton Street. And while I do not approve of that activity, I will tell you that we cannot, as a city, enforce that. The last thing I'd like to say, and I doubt that you're going to be very happy with this, but within the next week, by Wednesday, and in a couple of days, we are rolling out a program called Come Back Safely. And it's a pledge that our business owners and our citizens can take that we are going to socially distance, wear masks, and wash our hands. All of the things that the CDC has stated we need to do. And that's what we are doing as the city of Roswell to roll this program out. And you will see businesses will have cling stickers in their windows if they've taken the pledge. So if a business takes the pledge to come back safely, wear masks, social distance, and wash their hands, basically, then they can put that on their doors. The other thing too is we will have a landing page on the city site that states all of the businesses that are willing and committed to coming back safely. So any of our citizens or visitors, they can sign up too, but any of our citizens and visitors can go on our landing page of our website, see which businesses have committed to doing this. And that is our way of basically getting around the governor's mandate, because we will let people know who in the city of Roswell, which business is committed to the health, safety, and welfare of our visitors and our citizens. So, Mr. Halsey, do you have anything you need to add to this?
No, Mayor, I think you covered it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Halsey. So thank you so much for being involved. Thank you so much for taking your time to contact us. And I am always available for additional conversations if you reach out to my office. So thank you again so much. The next person in the queue is Mr. Jason Yowell. Mr. Yowell. You know, Jason.
Jason's the one in.
We've got a technology issue on the part of Mr. Yowell, but let's jump to the next person and we'll come back to Mr. Yowell. Mr. Lee Fleck. Mr. Fleck. Is he on?
You hear me?
Yes, we can now. Thank you.
Mayor and council, good evening.
Good evening.
First thing I would like to ask if you could update us on Chief Burnett's situation. Haven't heard anything for a few days. I knew he was taken off the ventilator, but I'd like to know how he's come along.
Thank you, Mr. Fleck. We do need to be careful because of HIPAA rules, but I will tell you that it is my understanding that there's no change. He's holding his own.
I'm sorry, what did you say before holding his own?
I said he is holding his own. There has been no change.
Okay, thank you. I had put in a request to the fire department for updated information. I would hope that they will do so.
Well, Mr. Fleck, let me explain again that we've got HIPAA rules that we need to abide by and follow to the letter of the law. So our staff cannot disseminate medical information on any person, you know, that is a staff member. So please be patient as the information gets out. We are getting information from his family members. And as I said, we don't have any new information right now.
Okay, thank you. First, I want to say, as far as, I really don't understand why we cannot meet in council chambers session. I think that this format is completely disenfranchising many who would like to comment. I don't think that you're taking into account things like the need for translators, nor are you taking into account the situation if you have anybody that's, I don't think this system is ADA compliant. That being stated, I want to move on. I want to compliment your code enforcement group for expeditiously resolving issues Monday through Friday. However, I would appreciate weekend coverage, as was the case under the UDC matters when they were being outsourced previously. Number two, last week I sent pictures to you all showing you again the rustic ice in East Roswell Park. I brought this matter to the attention of council back in January, and at that time you all added section 5.6 to your artwork protocols, that the donations policy, which describes the requirement for a maintenance plan and associated costs for any project donated to the city. Since there's not been any action in the last 7 months, I presume that that protocol is not retroactive. So I think you all need to make a decision and either, well, I think you ought to remove it because it's really a source, an embarrassment. I can't believe that city employees and anybody going to the Arts Alliance that drive by that think that that's an appropriate display of artwork in the city of Roswell. The other issue, I've already had conversations with Mr. Letterman today, and I think we've both come to a resolution as far as an issue within East Roswell Park. So those are my comments. Thank you for hearing me, and I wish you all a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Fleck. And I would like to say, I, for one, and I have a feeling that I can speak for the council members, that as soon as we can get back to in-live meetings, that would be my preference. I am just zoomed out. I don't think that Zoom meetings are as productive as in-person meetings. That's just my personal opinion. So as soon as we can get back to that, we absolutely will. We're just waiting for the numbers to come down a little bit. So the next person in the queue is Mr. Del Cerro.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, council members. Thank you again for additional time here this evening. I also want to thank the mayor and council members for their service, especially during these times. I know you all have your families and you're trying to handle everything in a different sort of circumstances with COVID. Thank you for all that you have done to go as far as you can within the limitations at the state level. I know that in good faith that you all are doing the best you can with the circumstances. And also thank you again for your detailed hard work on the budget. I also wish to extend kudos and a thank you to Chief Conroy. You know, we have a lot of people here in the community and on the ground who really appreciate him stepping into a situation and trying to go ahead and take things forward for a new focus for the police. And that's very much appreciated. And also, I just wanted to extend just thoughts for our Chief Burnett. The second point I wanted to talk about, as you all might know, I presented to council in Mayor in the past about the Roswell High School band boosters. I'm finishing up my term on president finally, and we have we just, you know, this previous March, on March the 7th, right before COVID, we did our community service day. I want to send much gratitude to Council Member Judy for being there, for his attendance for the kickoff that morning, where we had lots of donuts and OJ for the kids. And he gave us a little bit of marching orders, and then we all went out there to different locations to serve Roswell. We cleaned up the Smith House, the various grounds, this Vickery Creek, Roswell North Elementary, the Recycling Center, Azalea Park. I do want to point out that Mimosa Hall, we worked with Joel St. Vrain and Dina Bush. That's a lot of work. And we got north of 30 kids and a handful of volunteers to go ahead and start to do a big cleanup back there. There was a lot of bamboo and such, but we know that's an investment for Roswell, and we want to play our part to make it to make the grounds better for everybody. We did, at the end of the day, raise over $10,000. All that money, every penny of it goes back to the kids to help fund the various clinicians, teaching, instruments, and the program to be successful at Roswell. Because then again, Fulton County only provides about 5% of the P&L or budget it takes to run the program. So it takes a village to do this. And I want to thank Roswell. It's various organizations from everyone, from the top down, for your support. This is our 3rd year, and the 4th year looks to be happening on March the 13th, 2021, and hopefully situations will be okay, and we'll be able to do that and give back to Roswell once again. Again, that's Saturday, March the 13th. The last thing I want to point out, and I know that I've attended these before, transportation is a common thing on these open forums, but I did want to bring up a situation that I may have brought up previously. Back in April of 2017, we had 2 young boys from Lassiter High School, James Pratt and his younger brother Joseph, were driving eastbound on 92, and they collided with the school bus. And it happened specifically at West Road and 92. It's just in the western edge of Roswell. And you know, it's a very tragic story. It's an unprotected intersection. It's my request that that someone from transportation can go ahead and take a close look at this, conduct a study and do an analysis. You know, I raised 3 kids of my own, and as a family, we refuse to make left turns from that intersection. It's a pretty risky situation that I ask again for y'all to look at it. I did reach out to Director Assenbrock before his retirement, and I also one time since then, but I'm not hearing back. So I just kindly request for some sort of study to look into this. So thank you all for your time, and I'll yield the time back to you guys.
Thank you very much. I appreciate, again, I appreciate you taking the time and providing your input and everything that you are doing in the community. And I would also like to give our band members in the Booster Club a round of applause. You've done a great job. So thank you. I will look into the Highway 92 and West Road. And also I would like to remind everyone that that is a state road. So the Georgia Department of Transportation controls it. They control whether or not we can put a light there. Any kind of traffic mitigation is up to the Georgia Department of Transportation. But I will ask Mr. Ralph to look into it and see if the state of Georgia is willing to look into traffic mitigation issues there. So thank you very much again. The last person that we've got on the agenda, oh, he dropped off, is
Mayor, he's on.
he does not have a microphone, so he will not be able to speak. And Mr. Yowell, if you would, please feel free to email us any questions, comments, or concerns you have, and we will address those appropriately. Not having anyone else in the queue, I would like to say thank you all for participating again, and we are adjourned.